Hey everyone, I just wanted to talk to you about this CWD issue again. It's been in my mind. It's like I'm obsessing about it. But I've got a few DFL people, and I've got Lou Cornicelle with the DNR working so hard to take my livelihood away. And that's a fact. I've worked on this farm for 28 years, building a farm for me and my boys. And now when it's performing and it's going good, they want to take away the future of my boys. So I want to talk a little bit about Lou Cornicelle being interviewed by Billy Hildebrand last Saturday morning. I know Billy, I like Billy, he's a good guy. But Lou, as our Dr. Lou Cornicelle, does he have any obligation to tell the whole truth? Or can he just tell the truth according to Lou? I think he should be compelled as a state employee to be non-biased and present the facts in every case that he's discussing. He works for us, the people. So Lou in his interview is talking to Billy Hildebrand, and Billy makes a comment that, well, this Crow Wing case, sadly, CWD in Crow Wing County, this Crow Wing case, it came from a deer farm. This deer now that was just found in the wild, it's a smoking gun. It's a smoking gun. I mean, it's a dead giveaway. That's pretty much what he said. And they're using terms that are associated with a court trial, where you'd go into court and you'd want to convict somebody of something really horrific. So the term smoking gun, I mean, that's just a dead giveaway. It definitely came from that farm, no doubt about it. That's according to Lou. Lou goes along with it. And let's listen to that sound clip.
Well, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. The farm is responsible for this.
Well, that's our likely source of infection. I mean, there's no kind of beating around the bush.
Well, wouldn't you say that now this deer farm up in Crow Wing County that's one smoking gun, and then we've got the one down in Winona that they depopulated all the animals with a CWD infected deer not very far along and away, and that's another smoking gun. You got two guns that are still smoking.
Well, there it is. They've been the judge and the jury, and they've done a conviction. In my mind, that's the way I feel when they're coming after my livelihood. So now let's look at the facts. I called up the owner of that deer farm, and I said, "What is going on?" He said, "Well, Steve, back in the day," he said, "I bought several pieces of land, 2 pieces. I've lived there since the 80s and 90s, and when I bought my 1 piece of land, I bought it in 2009. I bought it from Potlatch. It was open to public hunting. I bought the other part in 2012, and then I logged it in 2014. In 2014, he said, we found hundreds of bones out there. Well, prior to me buying the land, he says, I was fully aware that people would dump carcasses all over this land. They would, people, game wardens, citizens, highway cleanup crews, what do you do with a roadkill deer? They would bring them out there and dump them on this land. So now this is a dump site for bones. So at some point, a Dr. Tracy Nichols ends up out there after he's finds CWD. And they're trying to figure out and come up with, they had some grant money, they're trying to figure out how did CWD get here, and they're walking around and they're literally finding hundreds of bones on this property. She had her camera with, and I was told she would see a bone, take a picture of it, send it off to an expert somewhere, and instantly know what type of bone it was. So there were bones identified as bear, canine, deer, elk, and antelope. There were antelope bones on his land. People were dumping, where did they come from? We don't have antelope season in Minnesota. So here we've got hunters coming from out west, bringing back antelope and dumping them. Remember in my last video, I said a doe that is nursing, lactating, craves calcium and phosphorus. If they find a bone in my pen that I didn't even know was there, it was there before I ever fenced it in. If they find that bone and they scratch it up to the surface, it's 2 inches under the ground, I've gone out there and seen a doe with a rib bone in her mouth, chewing on it in the distance. And I drive up and I scare her away and she drops it. She's eaten half the bone. She's craving calcium and phosphorus to make milk. I increase the calcium and phosphorus in my mineral. But they eat bones. Does in the wild do it all the time. They chew on antlers. They eat them themselves. I've seen it. So now we've got possible CWD infected antelope bones being brought back, dumped there. And is Lou aware of this? Smoking gun. This is the smoking gun. Is Lou aware of it? Or did he not know that? So he's trying to use language like in a court of law, criminal court of law, and smoke and gun. Does he have more evidence that he's withholding? Well, let's see. Dr. Mary Donahue wrote a 77-page report. She's from the USDA epidemiology report, and she lists as a possible source for contamination on this farm, dumping. Dumping as a source. Lou is in the position to know what he's talking about. I would bet you $100, in my opinion, Lou read this report. I'd like one of our state reps or our senators to set Lou down, and I'd like him to ask him, did you read a 77-page report from Dr. Mary Donahue? Did you read it? And if you read that report, did it specifically say that dumping was also a possible source for contamination? And if you read that report and you're sitting on Billy Hildebrand's show and you're just going along creating hype and rhetoric with your hatred for deer farms, shame on you. You're not credible. Lou Cornicelle is not credible. He's withholding information. So if he was in a courtroom, in a trial, trying to convict a deer farmer of spreading CWD in a criminal case, how silly would it be? Lou's testimony, I would say it's not credible. He's withholding critical information. I want to know if Lou read that report and if he was aware of it. That's what I want to know. So now on this interview with Billy Hildebrand, Billy brings up that, well, there's carcasses and people got to be diligent. It was a good statement that Billy made. It was a good statement, but it was kind of dismissed. Lou didn't want to talk about that, but Billy brought it up. Play the sound clip.
You could do everything right. It's one person that brings a carcass over from an infected area, maybe across the river, brings it over and drops it in his back 40 when he's done with it, and you've got CWD on the landscape. People need to be diligent. They just don't get that.
Yeah, and that's why we got criticized. In 2016, we just decided that we're going to ban carcasses from all states, and enforcement did a real nice effort looking at catching people across the border, and they didn't see very much. So I do think that most Minnesota hunters comply with regulations.
So here you are. You hear Billy Hildebrand saying, people got to be aware. You can't just bring carcasses in and dump them anywhere because it could spread CWD pretty quickly. What was Lou's response? It was kind of dismissive. A couple of years ago, we kind of reeled that in. We took care of the problem. We changed the law. You can't import carcasses. He didn't want to talk about dumping carcasses as a source. Blame deer farms, Lou. Keep it up. Okay. So Lou's response was, well, we stopped, people from throwing a deer carcass on top of a Dodge minivan and driving across the state line. And our game wardens are doing a really good job. And, we've kind of got that under control. And that's really a non-issue because I was on top of it. Lou, you're crazy. Let's talk about carcasses in Wisconsin, okay? There are 4 counties in Wisconsin that are the endemic hot zone. Okay, what counties are these? Okay, 4 in red on the map that Dylan's showing you. They are Dane, Iowa, Richland, and Sauk counties. In those 4 counties, that's the hot zone. Boy, it's pretty close to Minnesota. We know deer migrate, but in those 2 counties, in 2016 and 17, it looks like, my numbers show that there were 32,000 plus deer harvested in those 4 counties. It looks like over a 2-year period. So 32,000 whitetails were harvested in the 4 hot zone counties. They did testing, and in the testing, 2,291 were tested, 17% were positive. So if you do a little math correlation there, they're guessing that over 5,000 deer in 4 counties in fact had CWD. Is Lou aware of this? Or does he just want to blame deer farms? He's aware of it, but he's dismissive when Billy brings it up. So, 5,000 deer had CWD. Where did these hunters come from? We're going to put a map up that shows the zip codes of all the hunters that went into these 4 counties and where they came from. Here's the map. So people traveled from all over the U.S. to go to those 4 counties. They have the numbers. This is factual stuff. This is put out by our USDA. They're concerned. Okay, So Lou stopped carcasses from coming into the state, but can people bring in meat? Did some people just throw the deer in the back of their pickup and drive across the state line and not think of it or get caught? I would bet so, Lou. So these deer are being brought all over the place, and then people butcher them, and what do they do with the bones and the scraps and the hides? They get thrown out on the landscape. In Minnesota, there's 500,000 hunters that take to the woods each year. Large percent of them are successful. Where do they put the bones and the carcasses? Where do they put them? How many deer are shot in Wisconsin? They're dumped on the landscape, just like the case in Crow Wing. I'm not happy about the case in Crow Wing County, but whether that land was fenced in or not, those bones would have been there, and the wild deer would have contracted CWD. That's a fact, no doubt about it. Okay, Lou, you need to be straight up and present all the evidence. You're not doing that. You're just simply not doing it. So in the interview, Billy Hildebrand says, and he talks about CWD transferring to people. He said he's read some stuff somewhere that it's most likely going to happen. And Doctor, play the sound clip.
People don't understand the ramifications if this jumps to humans. They just don't understand it. And I read somewhere one of the researchers, I think from the U, was saying it's almost a certainty that it will eventually jump.
Yeah, and I certainly defer to Dr. Osterholm and the other public health experts on that, on that issue. But the reality is that those experts say you should not consume meat from a prion-contaminated animal.
So Lou, he says, well, I'll refer that to some other people, basically not my area of expertise. But then he goes on to talk about it. And yeah, bad deal. It's a bad deal, according to Dr. Lou Cornicelle. Well, I got a question for Lou. 5,000 deer in these 4 counties were killed with CWD. They were transported all over the U.S., pretty much. And the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, they recommend you don't eat CWD meat if you know it. Why haven't they come in and shut down hunting? If this was a big bad deal, I think the CDC is probably on top of things pretty good. And why don't they come in and say, these 4 counties in Wisconsin, nobody gets to shoot a deer there. They will not leave the state unless they're tested, and they have a site set up there, and they're testing them before they leave. Or it's just simply shut down, and people go shoot them, and they're all put in an incinerator. Why don't we have an incinerator in those 4 counties? Hunters go out, shoot deer, and by law, they have to bring them to an incinerator and burn them. But no, 5,000 of them left Wisconsin to be eaten. And the CDC is pretty quiet on it. Lou, you should probably call the CDC. Okay, call them up today, give them a call, and explain to them that you're a doctor and you know quite a bit, and they're really dropping the ball. Deer farms are the cause of the problem. It's toxic meat. It's a nuclear hot zone. All the deer in deer farms need to be killed, and they need to start incinerating those deer and getting rid of them out there. Why don't you do that, Lou? Explain to them how much you know. I'm tired of you attacking deer farms. I'm tired of you, your rhetoric that you're spewing. You're causing fear. Why are you causing so much fear with your rhetoric? Does it have something to do with money? Oh, you get money. That's how it works, isn't it? If people need new equipment in any business, you need new school buses. How do you argue you need new school buses? Well, they're going to fail. All the kids are going to die. Our kids are going to die if we don't spend money and get new school buses. Yeah, okay, well, that's what you're doing, Lou. If we don't kill all the deer farms and we don't make drastic measures, we're going to ruin our deer herd when you're not doing nothing except holding your hand out asking for money. People, we can't put up with this. How do we hold our officials accountable? Share the video. Thank you.